So last night I was watching Jordan Peterson on Dave Rubin. This video came up in the autoplay and I didn't have time to stop the autoplay, and so I just started watching it. And I don't have normally a lot of time to watch every single Jordan Peterson video, and he's been doing many of them as of late. But I decided to watch this one, and this is another treasure, just as the previous two I covered. They're just full of moments that you can clip out and edit for Jordan Peterson owning the left and so forth. So we're going to get to an interesting clip here with Jordan owning a toxic masculinity question, but there's a lot that I want to get to in this video. But first I want to just draw a little attention to something Jordan tweeted out this past weekend, I believe. And if you're like me, you can't get to every single thing Jordan tweets out, but this is definitely worth checking out. It's someone did a Land of Meaning visual guide of Jordan Peterson's basic maps of meaning lectures, I guess, or what he's talking about in maps of meaning. And I thought this was a really handy map of what Jordan's talking about. And this is you can see the zoomed out version. And it's well worth exploring, because as you zoom in, you can hit these little info buttons and they will give you some more information about what is happening in that area of the map. So here you have Competence Mountain, and at the top of Competence Mountain there's the Virtue Castle, the Attention Lookout. For some reason this info, oh, here we go. After reaching the top, one is tempted to just relax and reap the rewards, but it is important to always pay attention to the ever-changing surroundings. Failing to notice changes and adapt is fatal. He has the dopamine falls and the serotonin fountain. I thought that was a really nice detail there. Learning and forgetting, the culture wall, the adventure trail, the truth torch, the dragon. There's a lot of stuff here that's just full of intricate details all around the map. I would encourage you to explore that. And he comes up to the word forge and the vision springs at the top here. It's very interesting. I'll put the link in the description of this video. But I just thought that would be an interesting aside. And getting back to this video, I would really like to, man, if I knew how to edit better, I would turn this map into a sort of intro, like a Game of Thrones intro, and I would zoom into a part that we're talking about here, maybe the Arrogance Tower, and I would put this woman's face that Jordan's going to speak to. I'd maybe put her right here in the Arrogance Tower, and I'd zoom in, kind of like the Game of Thrones intro, how they bring you across that map. And I'd like to play this clip from the Game of Thrones intro to remind people what it's like. Maybe you can imagine the music yourself, and imagine us going across this map with the Game of Thrones music, and you're going to see this here, Dumb and Dumber. This might be a wrong impression of them, but I think one is dumb and the other's dumber, or they're both trash. Either way, they try to trick Jordan. They try to, I think, they have some dress. They're dressed up sort of, well, they're not as dressed up as Jordan Peterson is, but they're trying to dress up here. And what I imagine them dressed as is the Gordon's fishermen, or oh no, better yet, the people from Deadliest Catch. I think they think they're on Deadliest Catch. And they're trying to catch our notoriously cantankerous crustacean, Jordan Peterson here, but they forget how deadly the catch really is, and how many people die in those fishing waters. So yeah, check out this map. It's really cool. I think we're going to get to Arrogance Tower, And, well, here's some of the Game of Thrones, just to remind you. So as all that stuff is building on the map, this could totally be that same type of map. And I think we're going to visit Arrogance Tower, or maybe the Deprived District.
From you oppressed people at the back.
Hi, Jordan. My question is, what is the antidote towards toxic masculinity?
Well, the antidote is responsible masculinity.
This was her big moment. You know, this was out of all the people, it's like standing room only. She got up there, and now she was ready to ask the important question. She was going to hit the ball out of the park, as they say. But what did she end up doing? Toxic masculinity.
Wait, it's getting dicier. Oh no!
What does responsible mean? It means, well, if you're responsible, then you're trying to do what's honest first. So you're careful with your speech and your actions. You're careful with your speech in that you don't say things that you know to be false, and you're careful in your actions so that you don't have to lie about what you do. That's a good start. And then the next thing would be that you're capable of taking responsibility for yourself, at least, so that once you're an adult, no one else has to bend over backwards to ensure that you don't unduly suffer in the world. And so that's responsibility for yourself. And then if you get halfway good at that, well then, you know, you might think about taking on the responsibility of a family and contributing to your community and doing all those things in a harmonious manner. And that's obviously the antidote to toxic masculinity, which is not a phrase I would generally use. I just think about it as, you know, what would you call it? I think sinful behavior is a much more accurate representation, personally.
Now look at his expression as he says that. I know a lot of people on the right would crucify Jordan for even uttering the words toxic masculinity, but here he is, he's trying to answer her question, he's trying to make as if there is something to answer, and he tries to steer her in the right direction by engaging with her and communicating with her that it's not necessarily a problem for men, it's a human problem, and to focus unduly on men, that's kind of sexist, and that's kind of what you don't want to do. It's kind of what you're trying to fight against, and instead what you're doing is you're just feeding the dragon. Instead of slaying him, you're just feeding him and making him grow bigger and bigger so that you eventually become consumed yourself.
But it's honesty and responsibility. And I do think about it as a function of harmony. I got that a lot from reading Jean Piaget, whose work was a psychological extension of Kant's categorical imperative, because Kant believed that you should act in a manner such that if the way you acted became a universal, that would be beneficial. But Piaget formalized that very nicely, showing that one of the bases for the emergence of a system of genuine ethics was an iterable form of reciprocity, so that, you know, so for example, I can give you a quick example of that. My granddaughter, who's now 15 months old, has discovered a new game, and it's a Piagetian game, a developmental game, and she discovered this by watching, but also on her own, and partly because it's a very deep part of human nature. So she has this little wooden spoon, and her game is, you sit with her at the table, and her game is, she gives you the spoon, and then you take it, and then you give it back. And then she's all happy about that, and then she gives the spoon to the person who's sitting beside her.
Now notice how Jordan's tone is friendly and he's happy, and he's trying to engage in a neutral or positive way with the audience and with this person asking the question. He's even telling a personal story about his granddaughter. I'm sure this is warming his heart as he's saying it, and maybe perhaps he hopes it warms their heart too, as young children tend to do to people. But you'll see a lot of faces in the crowd, and particularly the woman asking the question. They have dead eyes, or they have sorrowful eyes, or they look like they're in utter despair. And it's very interesting to watch. And again, there's probably a language barrier, so I don't know how much that has to do with it, but it's interesting.
And then they give it back to her, and she's very happy about that. And so it's an amazing game, because she's learned to give up something, to let go of something that she wants, and to trust someone else to return it to her, and that's what she's playing with. And then you can play with that game. It's quite fun. So, you know, and you have to pay careful attention to her and watch how she's manifesting her emotions. And so maybe what you do is you take the spoon and you hide it under your hand. That sort of disconcerts her a bit. Then you show it to her and pick it up and give it to her, and she's happy about that, because what she sees is that the principle of reciprocity can maintain itself across a set of transformations, and that's really exciting to her. Or you can give her the spoon and she can give it back to you, and then she can reach for it and you can pull it away a quarter of an inch, and that sort of disconcerts her, and then she'll
She was saying something. You could hear someone kind of whispering there, and it got Jordan's attention. They have to turn on the mic for her, because now she's trying to interrupt him as he was speaking and telling the story, trying to answer her question. She decided that it wasn't good enough, and she has to interrupt him as he was speaking.
I said that didn't cover really a toxic masculinity, right? Because
yes, it's dealing with the principle of reciprocity.
No, you just said that you have to be honest and responsible as a man, right?
Well, put it this way. When I'm giving the spoon back to my granddaughter, I'm not engaging in toxic masculinity. And that was the point that I was trying to make, is that, and this deep reciprocity and trust is part of the social contract, and it is precisely the antidote to what precisely, since we're going to pursue this, what precisely is toxic masculinity, as opposed to, say, toxic femininity or toxic humanity? What exactly are you asking me about?
Well, I really want to know what you like, how you would describe toxic masculinity. Because
no, I want you to define what toxic masculinity constitutes. Since we're going to define things so carefully, let's do it.
Well, I think...
Okay, guys, sorry, but we really have to move on. So there will be more questions later on.
So she wanted to play ball, and Jordan said, okay, let's play ball. And if we're really going to play, let's play hardball. Let's take the gloves off and get down to brass tacks. Let's get down to where the details are. As Jordan says, the devil's often in the details. Now, the moderators try to cut her off, but they do get into this even more. And she's unable to really play hardball because there's nothing there. And Jordan aptly demonstrates that toxic masculinity, all of these phrases and these words and these language that the left develops, it's all very empty.
There will be a lot of opportunities now, but
maybe let's, if you okay, so let's define it shortly.
All right, shortly, please.
Okay, I think that the moment when you kind of, I have a hard time to kind of describe it in English. Let's say, that you kind of go over a boundary that kind of neglects the freedom of the opposite, well, gender or whatsoever. So that's toxic masculinity, and that you kind of have.
But that would also be toxic femininity.
Well, may I like finish my sentence,
sure.
please? Thank you. And
so you see, she had just interrupted him, and it was okay for her to interrupt him. But if he tries to add a detail to her point, then he's interrupting her. He's interrupting a woman, and now he's embracing toxic masculinity. She didn't see it. Her eyes were blind when she was doing it.
And then also, I lost my sentence now. But no, I will be back. I'm back. But more in the sense that Yeah, can someone help me here in the audience?
Okay, so before we move on,
Why does the woman need help from everybody?
let me point something out, you know, that I was willing to undertake this line of discussion, allowing for the possibility that the category of toxic masculinity had some content, right? But if we're going to pursue that line of reasoning and quibble about the answer, then we're certainly going to quibble about the definition that's embedded in the question. And so part of what's happened in our discourse is that we're required ethically to assume a priori, merely out of politeness, that the utterance toxic masculinity actually constitutes a meaningful phrase. And if you push it, you find very rapidly that it doesn't, because it's very, very, very difficult to define, and definitions actually matter. And so if it's a matter of transgressing against the boundaries of gender-appropriate behavior, well, first of all, that indicates that there's something universal and normative about gender-appropriate behavior, which is something that people who push the idea of toxic masculinity generally tend not to presume. And second, it's just as likely to happen among women as among men, in which case it's not toxic masculinity. So maybe on to the next question.
Okay. We will shortly ask one or two questions, and then we will open up for.
So there again, Jordan aptly demonstrates the nonsense, the kind of non-thinking that goes on in the extreme leftist SJW type brains, where they have to hold two contradictory notions simultaneously. So what is toxic masculinity?